The forgotten road to Crown Point. History prefers the fort that was taken. The dramatic gate, the startled garrison, the famous line shouted in the dark. It remembers Fort Ticonderoga. It remembers Ethan Allen. But history is often built not only on the place everyone names, but on the road that continued after the applause moved on. My name is Benedict. No, not that one. Today I will tell you about the forgotten road to Crown Point. In May of 1775, the American cause was still raw. Lexington and Concord had bloodied the air. Boston was surrounded. Militiamen were gathering. And yet the colonies still lacked what wars require most: organization, powder, and cannon. That shortage helps explain why the northern forts mattered so much. Fort Ticonderoga, taken in a bold surprise by Ethan Allen, Benedict Arnold, and the Green Mountain Boys, gets the glory. And fair enough. It was dramatic, unexpected, the sort of story nations like to remember. But Ticonderoga was not the end of the movement north. It was the beginning of it. Because once the Americans seized that fort, there remained another British post farther north on Lake Champlain. Crown Point. Smaller, less famous, more neglected, and therefore, in the minds of later generations, easier to forget. This is often how history behaves. It places a lantern over one event and leaves the next in shadow, even when the second helps secure the first. Crown Point was one of those shadowed places. After the fall of Ticonderoga, American forces moved quickly to take it as well. The British presence there was thin. The resistance was weak. The post fell with relatively little drama, which is, I suspect, one reason Americans rarely tell the story. We admire thunderclaps more readily than follow-through. But follow-through is how wars are sustained. Crown Point mattered because the struggle in the North was not merely about one fort. It was about the Lake Champlain corridor, that long strategic path between Canada and the Hudson Valley. Empires had contested it before. The French and Indian War had taught everyone in the region that water, forts, and supply routes often mattered more than speeches. By taking Crown Point after Ticonderoga, the Americans tightened their hold on that corridor. They gained more stores, more position, more confidence, and just as importantly, they began thinking less like scattered rebels, and more like men who might shape a theater of war. That is no small transition. It is one thing to seize an opportunity. It is another to recognize that opportunity must be secured, extended, and made useful. There is also something revealing about the men involved. The early revolution was full of rough-edged personalities, uncertain rank, and overlapping authority. Benedict Arnold was there, still energetic and useful, before history turned his name into warning. The Green Mountain Boys were there, brave and difficult in equal measure. These were not polished administrators of a settled republic. They were ambitious, improvising men trying to turn outrage into action. And yet, for a brief moment, that unruly energy was productive. The road to Crown Point shows us something Americans often miss. The revolution was not won only by famous declarations or singular dramatic gestures. It was also advanced by continuation, by pressing the advantage, by refusing to stop after the first success. And the consequences would stretch further than most of those men could see. The artillery taken in the north, from Ticonderoga, from Crown Point, from the region those forts controlled, would eventually help the American cause in ways that far exceeded the modest appearance of those outposts. Months later, Henry Knox would help haul Northern cannon to Boston in one of the most remarkable logistical efforts of the war. Those guns would help force the British evacuation of the city. So the forgotten road to Crown Point belongs to a larger truth. Sometimes history turns because men in 1 month did the second thing. The less famous thing, the thing that made the first success, actually matter. Crown Point did not offer the revolution a grand myth. It offered something better: utility, strategic depth, material gain, control. And revolutions, however poetic in retrospect, survive on utility almost as much as inspiration. There is a temptation in history to love beginnings more than continuations. The first charge, the first victory, the first name everyone remembers. But nations are not secured by beginnings alone. They are secured when men have the discipline to keep moving after the first success, to widen the gain, to make courage useful. Crown Point was not the most glamorous stop on the road to independence, but it was one of those places where the revolution quietly learned how to build on boldness, and sometimes the forgotten roads of history matter precisely because they were not glorious enough to distract men from finishing the work.